Hey there, Bruce, and welcome back to Deluge, Sermon for the Dead. Let's just carry on where we left off, shall we? Not going to the nerd party on the beach or whatever, or possibly an excuse to party for, I don't fucking know. Before I could even make it to the end of the corridor, I was cornered by Rika Kuiper. Abe, I'm so glad to run into you. You're just the person I was looking for. That can't be true. Oh, but it is. For I have something newsworthy to report. Who the fuck talks like that? And for that reason, I need a journalist. She stared up at me with pleading eyes, though I could detect a certain playfulness in her voice. Sometimes involving the press is the only way to achieve true righteousness in this world. They don't call you guys the Fourth Estate for nothing, do they? I really don't think I'm the right person for this. Ina's in her office. All leads can be submitted to her. Her face fell. Come on, Abe, you know how Ina feels about me. Please come with me for a bit. I want to show you something. Will you spare me your time? Oh, man. We'll save over that slot. Fine, alright. Oh, you have no idea how thankful I am. For this is truly a matter of the greatest importance. Begrudgingly, I followed her. Rika walked next to me in a confident pace, forcing me to increase my tempo to keep up with her. And as we walked, she seemed thrilled with herself, grinning with a mysterious sense of anticipation. Though I'm not easily thrown off my game, her lingering silence made me the slightest bit uncomfortable. So, how'd your service go yesterday? She moaned favourably. No more lights that burnt out? Preparation is key. No ritual can go without rehearsal. Ritual is rehearsal, or so they say. She shot me an inquisitive glance. We were walking down the Lightkeeper's Lane, a picturesque trail that led to the woodlands in the southeast. Great plum trees rose up on both sides of the path, arching together into a canopy of green. Rika? Yes? That thing you want to show me? I paused for a second to catch my breath. It isn't really on the way home, is it? She put a finger to her mouth. Oh, quiet now, this is a shortcut. Anyway, we're almost there. Is she going to murder us in the bushes? The lines of trees grew thicker, turning into a forest. Ooh, and after a while the path gave way to a clearing. In the midst of there lay a ruin. Is that the old church that she was talking about? The one that they dismantled partially to build the new church. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. There it lies, what remains of our old church. As you can see, many stones have been taken away and repurposed. And these ruins wither under the force of the elements, stones crumbling. Currently we're standing at the place where the graveyard used to be, before the graveyard relocation project took place. In the past, the sea came up just a few yards from where you're standing, but after the reclamation of the surrounding land, the water slowly disappeared. In the fickle daylight, I gazed upon the desolated church as it cast its lengthening shadows over the mossy forest floor. Proper burial is of such pivotal importance to our faith, for those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awaken one day, some to everlasting life. We believe upon the second coming of our Lord and Saviour that burial forms a prerequisite for entrance into the kingdom of heaven. But let me get to the point. Over the course of the centuries, 326 headstones were transported to the new church's crypt, and 326 caskets were buried underneath. The thing is, not all of those caskets held our dead. Are you saying some of the graves are empty? Empty, yes, or even worse, they held the remains of those unhallowed. It happened at the beginning of the previous century. In 1934, the islanders were close to exhuming the last of the old graves. Only 40 headstones remained, and a large concerted effort was undertaken to complete the remaining work and close the old graveyard for good. It was during these days that an esteemed scientist visited our island. Dr. Bram Bulwer, chairholder of the Department of Forensic Anthropology at Leiden University. Bram's intentions were rather sinister. He seemed interested in creating an anatomical archetype of the inhabitants of the Isle of Abbott. Among the nation's elites, many prejudices exist against our people. Considering how isolated our community was, we were an interesting case study, genetically speaking. You mean you're inbred? But back then, the islanders were clueless of the doctor's true intentions. And like we've always done with guests, we welcomed him in our midst and provided him with hospitality. Bulwer did a lot of important work in our community, providing medical checkups to the elderly and administering polio shots to school children. My grandmother still remembers how he came to their school, lining up the children by length and taking all their measurements, their arms, their legs, their skulls. Bulwer wasn't questioned at the time, as people still held medical experts in high regard, until he began involving himself with the graveyard relocation project. Immediately upon his arrival, he offered to help with the exhumation of the graves. And during the first few days, he spent his every spare hour helping the digging crew. But after some time, this led to uneasiness. On multiple occasions, the doctor was accused of treating the exhumed remains without proper regard, taking skulls out of the graves, inspecting them, measuring them, treating them without the due reverence that should be observed during the handling of a deceased person. It led to arguments, and the doctor agreed to cease his participation in the relocation project. But even after this incident, Bulwer was spotted near the old graveyard a few times, observing the workers and the empty graves. After 4 weeks, Bulwer departed for the mainland, never to return, and the islanders all but forgot about his mystifying presence. Bonika's face grew dark. Until Dr. Bulwer died 20 years ago. After his death, his personal archive was made public. A routine move by the university. His writing shone a new light on his stay in the island. A notebook from 1937 makes mention of 3 abbot skulls that are in possession of the doctor. That's the only time he mentions the term 3 abbot skulls, just as an aside. And it can only be speculated what exactly took place, but I, and many on the island with me, suspect that Bulwer must have snuck out one dark night, exhumed 3 graves, and replaced 3 of our skulls with other specimens found from his undoubtedly vast collection, before carefully resealing the graves, thus leaving him in possession of 3 exceedingly rare skulls from the eccentric population of Abbott. Are you saying the doctor went through all that trouble to steal some old bones? He did. He stole the remains of our ancestors to display them in a cabinet at some kind of exotic curio. We must return these remains, the abbot skulls, so that we can bury them in our native soil. These people, these poor souls, they have the right to a Christian burial. This is of fundamental religious importance to us. I looked at her uncomprehendingly. Oh, you may find my obsession morbid, but these bones tell the story of our people. Each of my ancestors has been buried on this island far back into the Dark Ages. It's a humbling thought to have them all in one place. To know that I will one day lie among them in the depths of the earth, protected by a sheltering church and a mighty God that rules from above. Alika's eyes shone in exalted glare, and I realized she could continue preaching like this for hours. Listen, Alika, I'm running late. Maybe we could continue this conversation a little later. It's okay, I'm done. Well, I want to ask you, see, after Bulwer's archives were published, we petitioned the university to return the skulls, but they only sent us a short reply explaining that no record existed of the skulls from Abbott, and that their mention in the notebook was likely an error. After that, all our further pleas went unanswered. We need someone with journalistic inlets to look further into this case, to do due research, to find out everything there is to know about these relics, and to publicize the whole dark matter so that the university would be forced to reveal the skeletons in its closet. She looked up at the setting sun. I apologize, Abe, it's growing late, and I've led you astray. I'm beginning to realize that this really wasn't much of a shortcut. It wasn't, was it? But I know a quicker way back to town that leads through the fields. I promise we'll have you home before sundown. She took me down a bicycle path that led out of the woods. Within a few minutes we came upon a little used trail that ran through the tulip fields. Wow. We have picked the season. Pretty, aren't they? In a few days these flowers will be harvested and flown in cooled crates to places across the globe. She pointed towards a purple spotted flower. Just imagine this poor thing could be wilting in a vase in Beijing by the end of the week. To think that something of such beauty would await such a cruel fate. But eventually that is the path of all things radiant. It just shows that we truly live in a fallen creation that groans under the consequences of our sin. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. She sighed. At least the farmers can harvest gold. A batch of these tulips will fetch a small fortune at auction. And come May, the land is ploughed and wheat is sown, and the cycle goes on as usual. Wednesday morning. I just remembered the interview I'd been asked to conduct with Marissa, the scatterbrain girl I'd met last Saturday. With our deadline approaching rapidly, I pondered what my next move should be. Ina couldn't expect me realistically to produce a quality interview on such short notice. And where to start? I didn't even have her phone number. I was certain that if I'd just show up at her door out of the blue, she'd be sure to reject me. I pondered the thought for a second. A rejection? That was what I needed. If I could simply tell Ina that Marissa had refused to grant me an interview, it'd free me from my obligations. What makes you think she'd refuse? I mean, she kind of owes us now, right? After all, no means no. To a journalist? Really? And then Ina would be able to interrogate her herself on a later date. Driven by these motivations and without any prior preparation, I found myself knocking on the door of Marissa's apartment. An interview? Yes, for our paper. It shouldn't take more than a few hours of your time, but I understand if you're busy. Busy? Not at all. You caught me on a little off guard, but I'd love to give an interview. A sinking feeling took hold of me. You must have heard about my appointment as the new leading candidate for Flock 05. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you last time we met. I was under strict orders to keep it a secret until our press release went out on Sunday night. And now you want to conduct an interview. A real interview with me. She was beaming. Oh, this is also exciting. I was becoming a little disappointed, you know. You're the first local press outlet to show interest in my new position. We're the only local press outlet. I want to tell you everything about our movement. But, I was actually in the middle of something. My apartment is a mess. Please meet me in the cafe across the street in 15 minutes. We'll conduct the interview there. As I sat in the empty cafe, tenderly sipping a triple ristretto? The fuck is a ristretto? 1,000 thoughts passed through my mind. Part of me ready to escape, while it was still possible, hastily scribbling an excuse note on a piece of paper before winging it out the door. But simultaneously, I found myself making up potential interview questions as a fickle attempt to alleviate the very worst outcome. Because I realised I probably wouldn't have the nerve to escape, that I would remain sitting here, caught like a deer in headlights, counting down the seconds until my inescapable demise. It can't be that bad, come on. And there she was. She seems very eager to help. As I watched her approaching through the window, I noticed something luminous in her appearance that I hadn't detected back when I saw her in the hallway. This is a great place, isn't it? So close by. Easy to find your way home from. Don't tease me. I've been doing a lot better. I brought a map, you know. Anyway, I'm very glad you're willing to talk to me. Though some national papers ran our press release, you're the first journalist to show interest in our actual story. But please, go easy on me today. You should know I've only been instated recently. That's right, I heard that there's an issue with your predecessor. My predecessor, Jurgen. She blushed. Let's not talk about him at all. I believe the gutter presses have uncovered all of his shady dealings. She lowered her voice. New political parties attract all kinds of types, you know. When you're building up a movement, it isn't always possible to separate the wheat from the chaff. But I think we've left these days behind. I want us to look toward the future, not the past. We've dealt with Jurgen in a responsible manner, and now we're ready to turn the page. You can quote me on that verbatim. Are you taking notes? Yeah. Hastily, I produced a notebook from my bag. I was trying to recall some of the questions that I'd prepared before Marissa's entry, none of which I thought to write down. So, could you tell me something about your goals as a leader? I mean, what would you do if you were elected? She shuffled anxiously. Well, that's the real question, isn't it? She thought long and hard. Flock 05 wants to bring balance and safety. Many things have become unbalanced in our town. AIR, Abbotsford's largest political party, has ruled continuously for the past 60 years. And though they seem like an obvious choice for those seeking stability, we believe their sole ruleship has caused a steady decline. Nothing immediate or life-threatening, but small things. Like the social cohesion in our town, and the sense of safety on the streets, rising corruption. Many values that were once commonplace have all but disappeared. And because this disappearance was a gradual process spanning many decades, it has passed many by. Until 2005, when a small group of concerned citizens joined forces against the rising tide, working hard to provide a political alternative to the time-worn status quo. Even as an opposition party, Flock has been able to achieve so much for our community. She clasped her hands together forcefully. And now we believe we're ready to take the lead. These are fighting words for a new frontrunner. Does it really sound that way? She shuffled around nervously in her seat. You can tone it down a little in the article. Please don't paint me in too bad a light. You may have heard people speak negatively about our movement, stating that we're extremists of some kind, but you must understand that there is nothing extreme about our goals. All we want is to live in a fair and safe society. Isn't that the most moderate stance of all? She smiled a tender smile. You know how it goes. Whenever you challenge the powers that be, they'll do anything to paint you in a bad light. It's true. We've been called vandals, authoritarians, bullies. But please realise, we're nothing like that. They call us names in order to cast doubt upon our intentions. Politics can be horrible at times. Exactly. But it's a game, you see. I need to be resilient. A waitress came by to take Marissa's order. I got up to visit the restroom. And as I approached the wash basin to wash my hands, a young man brushed by me. He turned around. How are the Madeleines here? The Madeleines? I have no idea. He grinned playfully. You don't? Having your doubts already? What? Something so mysterious. And with these words, he slipped through the door. When I returned to the common area, Marissa sat behind a steaming cup of latte. She gestured toward the young man who had seated himself at a nearby table, where he read his paper auspiciously. Did that guy say anything to you? There was a hint of acrimony in her voice. That guy? He asked me about the confectionery. The confectionery? That's strange, isn't it? I don't know, it was just a question. She pouted. He shouldn't be asking questions like that. Anyway, let us return to the interview. I was telling you about the core principles of our party. At Flock, we are realists. We do not delude ourselves with soothing fairy tales about human benevolence. She had become serious, uttering her words clearly and without hesitation. There was little that reminded me of the timid, forlorn girl that I had led home last Saturday. We believe society constitutes no more than a thin veneer of civility that hides away the true horrors of human nature. This is a subject I've explored extensively during my studies. In the natural state, without rules and institutions to enforce peace, humans are in a constant condition of struggle. We live in continual fear of violent death, our lives solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, short. A good government needs to be fair and strong to withhold man from his natural inclinations toward violence, and we as Flock are ready to take that position, away from the current political elite, that has become the very embodiment of that which it vowed to protect us from. How many votes would you need to have a shot at winning the mayoral office? She pondered. Quite a bit more than we currently have, and AIR would have to lose some. She smiled and spoke to me in a hushed voice. But we have a secret weapon. An influential politician will be joining our party soon, to back me up as my right-hand man. We should be able to release his name somewhere next week, but please hint at this in your news article to create some suspense. I promise you, he's an established political figure. I believe his backing will truly push our movement into the lead. A stir beside us. Sounds like you've been getting mixed up in sleazy circles again, Madeline. It was the young man, who had switched over to a table closer to ours. Marissa's entire demeanour changed in an instant. You stay out of this. You haven't changed a bit, Madeline, and it appears that you found a new victim. He leaned over to me. Don't be fooled by her charm. You wouldn't be the first young man to succumb to her wiles. Ignore him, Abe. Let's continue the interview. Bernard here is a terrible person, a bully. At university, he hung around with a band of lowlifes, wreaking havoc, causing trouble for students that actually tried to accomplish something in their lives. Accomplish something? Like taking charge of an authoritarian movement? Nonsense. Come on, he's ruining the interview. Let's go up to my apartment. Up to her apartment already? You're a lost cause, young man. Sick transient glora mundi. Fuming, Marissa pulled me out of the establishment. Don't you Latin at me, fancy man. Marissa sighed. Do you see what's happening? You can't even go for a quiet conversation without being harassed in this town. What a nuisance that Bernard is. I hope he goes away soon. He's probably visiting his dad who lives down here, poor man. She clasped her hands together tenderly. Oh, Bernard, that's who it is. It's that old politician guy's son. The one he said was like useless. Anyway, I think I have enough material for a decent article. The piece should be out next Sunday, together with interviews with the other party leaders. Thank you for the interview. She hesitated. Please don't paint me in too negative a light. As I said, our movement hasn't always been treated fairly by the press, and it causes prejudices, like these things Bernard said to me. But I feel that you're a sincere reporter who would be willing to give us a chance. If you treat us fairly, I may be able to help you. She grew serious. To help you with a revelation. I know things about the political elite in this town. About the mayor. Mayor Van Linden? What do you know about him? It's too soon, I can't tell. But let's talk again. She scribbled something down on a piece of paper. Here's my number. I'm sure we'll be in contact a lot during the campaign season. We headed to the door. Oh yeah, I was wondering. Are you going on the Easter break outing? Easter break? How do you know about that? Rika invited me. I thought it might be fun. Rika? You met Rika? Yeah, her father's in the town council, you know. He's a politician for AIR, but a respectable one. Well, that sounds like her. I think she's been inviting everyone. You should know Easter break is mostly aimed at high school students. Her lips sank down sullenly. You think so? I thought it would be fun, as a relief from politics. How about you let me know if you decide to go? Then at least I'll have someone to talk to. You have my number. Nice and nice. That's good, I think. Part 2. Rites of Spring. On Saturday, May and I took our paper route, the way that we'd grown accustomed to. Unlike last week, work proceeded with few distractions, and it was just afternoon that I found myself heading back to school to drop off my leftover newspapers. Good afternoon, Abe. Any news for me today? I looked around to see Marquis Leopold coming down the street behind me. Sure, we dropped it in your mailbox this morning. Haven't you found it yet? You have? My mistake. I haven't been home all day, you see. Well, it should be in there. I'd go read it if I were you. It's a special edition to mark the start of the campaign season. Ah, that's exactly the kind of news I subscribe for. Not that nonsense about dying insects. Leopold headed over to the mailbox. That's a nice picture of Marissa you have on the front page. You like her? She's the main rival to your party this year. Leopold grinned. My party? I agree that AIR was once my party. Are you still torn up about your low placement on the electoral list? Et tu, Brute? He sighed. They have betrayed me, ended my political career. You get in one little scandal and this is what they do to you. Cancel culture. AIR does claim to be a Christian party, you know. To hell they are, these damn Puritans will never let me live it down. They should have taken the honourable path and just thrown me out. But to avoid commotion and humiliate me even further, they placed me on an unelectable position. He glanced over Marissa's image again. But I feel that I may still have a part to play. I've been in talks with the leadership of Flock 05 over the past few weeks. And this morning they've agreed to let me grace the second place on the ballot. You're the political figure that they're bringing on for their party these upcoming elections. You? Second place for Flock? That's quite a switch. An official press release will go out tomorrow evening, so please keep this between the two of us for now. But I reckon with my experience and Marissa's charisma, we'll be able to elevate this shady club into a true political juggernaut. AIR will regret double-crossing me, just mark my words. So it's just for revenge. Suddenly Bernard appeared in the doorway of Leopold's house. Initially he made a disgruntled impression, but the second he recognised me, his spirits appeared to lift. Hi, Abe. Is that bedwetting old grandpa bothering you? Leopold chuckled. I see you've met my deadbeat son. He receives free food and board, and this is how he thanks me. You need to support your poor son a little, now that he's standing on his own 2 feet. Or am I interfering with your illicit dealings? Nothing here is illicit. With a wink, Leopold excused himself, though I could tell he was irked by Bernard's banter. I turned to Bernard. Congratulations on finishing university. I haven't exactly finished university. Although you could say I'm finished with university. He was staring after his father, who carefully moved his way up the stairs to the house, the Sunday Abbot clasped flimsily under his arm. Pathetic. He's got a penchant for trouble, that man. Bernard sighed. I always thought local politics would be an outlet for him, a harmless way to keep him occupied. But it appears he can't stop embarrassing himself. Suddenly Bernard grabbed me by the arm jovially. I apologise, young man. I really didn't have the chance to introduce myself to you when we met last Thursday. Although I'm sure Madeline has filled you in. You studied with her in Bremersburg? Sure, in different faculties though. I mostly dabbled in German literature, some theatre. I wrote my last essay on Almanzor. You wouldn't be partial to the works of Heinrich Heine, would you? I shook my head. I was reminded of something that Rika had asked me. Hey Bernard, while you were studying, did you ever come across the Department of Forensic Anthropology? Anthropology? I hope you don't want to measure my jaw alignment. No, it's nothing like that. A friend of mine is very interested in skulls for some reason. She will graduate high school this year and wants to study anthropology, preferably in Leiden University, if I'm not mistaken. Leiden? That's prestigious. They have a good anthropology department there. Pretty girls also. One of their professors is actually teaching a guest course at Bremersburg University at the moment, Peter Helsing. I believe his name is... He drives down there once a week. You should ask to speak to him. I hear it's a very popular course, although I was never that interested. I rather concern myself with the living. Monday, Ina's office. I was impressed with your interview. We got a call from the Evening Mirror, a national newspaper, to co-opt the article in their Wednesday issue. Marissa's presence appears to have stirred a broader interest in the town council elections. Are you saying my interview will be distributed nationwide? She scowled. It's not just your interview, they'll be publishing excerpts from mine as well. And hey, considering how you seem to have a great entry with Flock 05, her tone had become friendlier. I was wondering if you'd consider covering their entire campaign. Huh? What do you mean? That you'd serve as a dedicated reporter. If you do Flock, I'll do the other parties. I mean, your chemistry with Marissa. We can't let that go to waste. Can I count on you for this? Sure. Yeah, whatever. Ina smiled. After summer, we'll both be star reporters. But I wonder if there'll be anything worth writing about. Do you think Marissa's party could truly gain a foothold in our town? I'm not sure. AIR has always held an absolute majority in the town council, and the people here are generally steadfast. But times are changing. A party like Flock can build up support by challenging the status quo, and to a certain extent we can't blame the voters. When there's nothing to choose, a political elite will become arrogant, lazy, corrupt. Then, as soon as an alternative raises its head, people welcome it, under the assumption that any change is a good change. But will the rise of Flock 05 truly bring about good change? Only time can tell, especially now that they're under new leadership. If only we could get to know Marissa from really up close. Then she grinned as though she just remembered something. Moreover, something interesting has happened. It appears Flock has attracted a new candidate. Oh yeah, Leopold. Her eyes widened in amazement. You read the press release? That's unlike you. But you're right, it's Leopold. I guess it figures. The Marquis is a bad fit for the AIR. He's an unpredictable man, joining an unpredictable party. We went outside, and while I accompanied Ina to the bike shed, I recalled something that I wanted to tell her. Ina, before you go, during the interview, Marissa hinted at something. She said she knows of some kind of scandal that involves the political elite of Abbotsford. Please tell me more. It was clear I'd caught Ina's attention. There isn't much more, just that it's a well-hidden secret leading up all the way up to the mayor. Marissa promised to elaborate further if we were fair in our coverage of her party. You'll need to get to the bottom of this. But please be cautious. This could be a political game Marissa is playing in an attempt to damage her political opponents. We can't go around publishing unsubstantiated rumours. Make sure you get hard facts. At that moment, a cloud of ebony hair descended upon us. Ina stopped speaking immediately. Rika. Yep. Abe, Ina. I apologise for disturbing what must have been a very important editorial meeting. Ina eyed her up suspiciously. But I have great news. We're very, very close to reaching the participation threshold for Easter break. If the two of you could sign up now, the trip will be guaranteed to continue. You're so close already. I thought you were struggling to find people to attend. We were, but we made great progress. 2 people signed up just yesterday. A rather strange-looking young man and Marissa Roosevelt, the new girl in town. The other ones must be Bernard then. Have you met her? I could see Ina tense up. Such a nice girl, she's really trying to fit in. She even attended our church service yesterday, and now she's coming on Easter break. Ina interrupted her. Abe would like to buy a ticket. I turned toward Ina, muttering at her under my breath, but she shot me a deathly glare. Oh, that's great, Abe, thank you. Let me hand you a ticket. Please be sure to pay me before the coming Sunday. This means I only have one more ticket left to sell. Rika eyed Ina pressingly. What? Come on, Ina. You'll have a great time. You could write a report for the school paper. Ina began shuffling uncomfortably. I think she'll take it. Really? Wonderful. Meekly, Ina accepted the last ticket from an overjoyed Rika before wandering off in silence. Oh, we're going to get in trouble for that later. It's a big step for her. Ina hates joining in with social events. I nodded. But I'm sure she'll have a great time. Once she feels the warm sand against her skin, all reservations will melt off her like ice. Do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward. A silence fell. So, Abe, have you been able to look into the issue of the skulls? I was caught completely off guard. The skulls, I have actually. At Bremersburg, there's a lecturer who is connected to the Department of Forensic Anthropology at Leiden University. There is? I think if we just talk to him, ask him politely, he may tell us more about the skulls. Rika chuckled. Ask him politely. Oh, Abe, sometimes I feel as though you received the world like a little child. But I'm glad you put in the work. I'm truly grateful for that. It's worth a try. She began browsing through her calendar. Let's attempt to get in contact with this lecturer of yours and make a trip to Bremersburg. I'll call you to make further arrangements. And with that, we're out of time for this episode. But things are moving along quite nicely. It looks like we are going to the beach nerd conference. So, cool. Anyway, thanks for watching, Bruce, and I'll see you in the next one.